Hello, I'm Christopher Herring. I'm the Executive Director for Global Chamber San Antonio. And today I am with Stefanie Austin, who is the Executive Director for Global Chamber Austin, and Dana Austin, who is the Global Chamber Executive Director for the Atlanta metro market. So we'd like to welcome you all. Today we're going to have a discussion about a very, very new holiday that President Biden signed into law last year, and it's called Juneteenth. Now, I want you to get your chats ready as well, because I'm going to ask some questions about Juneteenth. But I do want you to realize that this is a conversation we're going to have, because as the nation is preparing to celebrate Juneteenth on the 19th of this month, we wanted to make sure that our global chamber was in the best position to help not only African Americans in the US, but also looking at how slavery impacted Africa and the Caribbean island, and really the southern hemisphere of the Americas. And so today I've invited a very special guest to open us up, and her name is Darlene Bradbury. Darlene wrote a book to celebrate this Juneteenth, and it's called Black Love, From Our Emancipation to Our Proclamation. Darlene is a poet. She is a brilliant new author. Her book actually ranked as the #1 new release on Amazon, and I had the distinct pleasure of being able to publish her. So I know that this is one of very few books that really talk to the essence of Juneteenth. And I'm going to give Darlene the floor so she can kind of set the tone for us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I humbly accept this invitation. It was very gracious of Chris to do this. The first poem I will read from in the book, Motherless Child to Mother Africa. Mama, I hear your cry, but I am far away. These men were pale like sand, no asking, only take. They took my mama away. To put me to sleep, I am wrapped warm, but you are not here. Your smell is gone. They took my mama away. I woke to light, sun cresting the land, see trees with ropes, with chains in hand. They took my mama away. Learning to walk with iron for collars, my feet swell much bigger, my steps are much smaller. They took my mama away. 400 years later, Gordon's Gucci red bottoms separate people from me by status and dollars. They took my mama away. Policeman, overseer, not wrong for death, just business. Slaveholder, judge, mayor, nothing changed, we're still niggers. They took my mama away. I hope I didn't offend anyone. But that's the separation of us, the Black American community, to Africa. And that may have been felt, as you said, in those regions that you spoke of. My second poem, Joy. Black mother, Black father, cry no more tears. Your babies are dying, dying to be understood, dying to be heard, dying to be loved. Wipe away your fears. Lay down your own pain, pick up the babies, hear them cry no more, and we will win. We will have joy, joy of prosperity, joy of family, joy, joy, joy. That is our hope for today.
Well, thank you so much, Darlene. Everybody put your hands together. No, so yeah, Juneteenth is really being defined, and I'll go back to my slideshow. It's really being defined right now. Last year on June 18th, President Biden signed into executive law having another holiday called Juneteenth. We've already seen some of the commercialization of what that looks like. And the reason why we're even talking about, Juneteenth is because I believe since this is really the first year that we've had the ability to plan, we need to know how to process this as a chamber and then as a community. And I don't necessarily think that it's about branding products and services under the notion of what African Americans or Black people may like. I think it goes much deeper. And so President Biden gave us this this opportunity, and he gave a proclamation from his desk. And in his text, he talks about how do we make Juneteenth a day of profound weight and power. So that's one of the questions in which we're going to be talking about today. How do we make Juneteenth a day of profound weight and power? And as we also go into the executive order, the president also wanted to make sure that we could demonstrate the extra capacity to heal and hope. So what does that look like? What does healing and hope look like from a global chamber perspective? And then lastly, I'll just remind you that in places like in Tulsa, where we had a very vibrant and community that was really self-sufficient and prosperous, the Tulsa Race Massacre, which is also referenced in the president's executive order that talks about Black business and commerce. Literally, there was mobs of white residents that basically burned the buildings down to the ground. They burned what we call Black Wall Street down to the ground. And this was only in 1921. And we're right now in 2022. So 100 years ago, a little bit over 100 years ago, this happened. So today we have a call of action. And that's what the president says at the end of his executive order, which is, again, why we're here. Just to remind you, the holiday is loosely defined. So we're here today because it's a call of action. And so the real question is how do we connect the dots in this chamber to recognize the opportunity to help heal, maybe through commerce, both the North American experience through the United States and even the South America and the Caribbean experience with Africa, which also lost a lot in the slave trade, meaning families were broken up at the very beginning. Families were disconnected. And along with it, even with an Emancipation Proclamation that was issued by our president, it didn't mean that the families of Africans were healed. And that's why, again, we have this period of time where we can actually talk about what are we going to do to, as the president says, develop a collective prosperity. How are we going to eradicate the systematic racism that may exist? And as members of the global chamber, what do we think that we can do better that will enable there to be a true connection with the businesses in America and those of African descent or the African diaspora in Africa, in the Caribbean, and those who really have been harmed and now seek to do things better? Is Juneteenth a celebration day? Or is it a day, like we would say with Dr. King's holiday, a day on and not a day off? And so since this is year one, I want to make history with y'all. So we're going to be prepared to hear from you. We're going to break out into some breakout rooms, but ultimately we want to hear, what do you think about this new Juneteenth? Are you prepared for it? Are you ready? And so I'm going to yield now to Dana Austin, who can give a perspective, and then we can ask some questions and break out into the first break room. And I also allow Stefanie to introduce herself as well.
Hi, thank you so much, Christopher. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with each of you today for this auspicious occasion, recognizing Juneteenth as its first holiday and recognizing the history, not eradicating it, so that we don't repeat things that have been done in the past, but not for humanity justice. But we can move forward and prosperity. And how will Juneteenth be recognized on my end? And what does it look like? Well, generally for Dr. King's holiday, I try to do something to serve in the capacity of service. And on this particular day, I know I will be doing something of service. That's just my nature, number one. But I think I will be more intentional about trying to make more connections from a global, economic, and global chamber is the perfect platform to do that. I've got some numbers I'll share with you a little bit later on about trade, or actually I'll share it with you now. So I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So when you think about international trade and including that triangle, which is South America, Caribbean, US, back to the motherland, Africa, the continent, and you look at what we as a state generate in revenue for 2021, we had 166.1 billion in total trade in 2021. I'm waiting for one of your faces to go like, what? What? Want me to repeat that number again? I see Mel smiling. Yes, 166.11 billion in trade for the state of Georgia. Do you think that was up from 2020? Yeah, okay. Don't worry, I'll tell you it was 20% growth. 20% growth. So we're saying, wait a minute. So during the pandemic, this is where we were, and still at the height of the pandemic, we were able to still trade. However, this is one thing that I would like to see inclusive of more countries that we're referring to today, is particularly the Caribbean, South America, and Africa, the continent of Africa. So the top 5 countries that were partnering with Georgia for those trades. You want to guess what those top 5 countries are? Since Christopher said this is interactive, let's let you type it in the chat. All right, what do you think the top 5 trading partners with the state of Georgia were in 2021?
Dana, they can unmute as well if they want to say it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Mostly imports and imports, yes.
So,
Brazil, China. Terry says China. Someone said Brazil. Anybody wants to? Mel, you're unmuted. Why don't you go ahead?
South Africa.
South Africa. Okay, sound like we want to travel. Anybody else? Okay.
Mexico are there?
Mexico. You're looking at my sheet, Cesar.
That's an obvious one.
He's always going to say Mexico somehow, Puerto Rico or Mexico. So I will tell you that China was one of the top 5 partners for Georgia. Mexico, that's true, Cesar. Anybody put Canada? Canada was one. You know, we're looking about North America. So Canada, US, Mexico, Germany, and Korea.
and that's for Atlanta, right?
That's for Georgia.
Georgia, okay.
Yeah, so that's the top 5. But if I expand it a little bit more, you're like, well, surely, Dana, there's going to have to be other countries in there that are represented of the diaspora. Well, it's not. So Korea would be one of the top 12 when we start getting a little bit broader. And I think Mel or someone mentioned Brazil. So yes, that's there. That one country's there. Chile. So 2 countries, Colombia, so 3 countries in South America, Israel and Japan, Korea, Mexico, Peru, and United Kingdom. So nowhere in there are any of the countries in the continent of Africa or even the Caribbean. We do have representation from South America. So what's one thing I would like to see change? I know one day on and a new holiday doesn't change everything, but this conversation that we're having today, it raises awareness, doesn't it? And we look for people that has services that we need in our country to do business with them. And likewise, they look for us. So I think my thing would be to be more intentional about connecting members in my chamber and other chambers with businesses in that region or services that they offer. So that's going to be what I do. That's what I'm gonna do on Juneteenth.
Thank
And I'm
you.
gonna have a cup of tea. Yes.
Well, that's good, Dana. That's good. So I capture the word intentional, that we want to be deliberate in creating a new trade partnership. And we do that with putting business to business together, which we can actually do through Global Chamber. That's one great suggestion. And then also, I just want everyone to realize that we have to be better at how we read and how we listen to what is being reported on the news. Case in point, the war in Ukraine is horrible. It's horrible. And our hearts have poured out, and we've seen the world respond. One thing that I do want to bring to your attention is that the port in Ukraine is currently not delivering the bread, the grain, the food that is essential to two places, Asia and Africa. And CBS News had it on last night where they said that 47 million people will die of starvation in these regions at the end of this year if the ports don't open. And so that's why this discussion is so important, because we have to be able to pay attention to the details. So now I'm going to switch over to my wife, who actually is the Global Chamber Austin executive director, and she's very detailed with me. So Stefanie, please.
Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I thank God for this forum that we have. I'm so excited about Juneteenth and about us getting in front of Juneteenth and how we celebrate and how we do this. As Christopher mentioned before, we don't want it to be a day off. We want it to be a day that we are intentional and that we're educating. And I think sometimes people make faux pas, such as the ice cream, because they don't know what to do, and they're trying to figure out, how do I support and say, yes, I'm on board? And it becomes offensive, and someone may think, I didn't think that was being offensive, or, from different people's perspective, it's making money. So how do we educate people so they'll know, where to step and how to step correctly and how to support and how to engage? And as Christopher mentioned, supporting Africa, supporting the Caribbean countries that were impacted, doing global trade. Global Chamber is about, doing business across the waters. So how can we be more intentional in the Caribbeans and Africa? Dana mentioned the statistics about Georgia. Texas leads in export trade in 2021 due to unique factors. So first of all, they've been number one for export for the past 19 years. So they're doing something right? It's their total dollars is $171.9 billion as of June. That's a lot of resources, right? But did you know that Texas export trade as of June 2021 exceeds the $165.2 billion sum of the next three largest states combined, which is California, New York. California came second with export trade of $86.1 billion. New York had $42.7 billion, and Louisiana had $36.3 billion. So that's a lot of trading that we have within the United States. So how do we partner with the countries that are in Africa, the countries that are in the Caribbean, intentionally, especially with Juneteenth, but just trying to open up those borders. And as Christopher mentioned, Ukraine has shut down everything, which has impacted Africa and Asia. What do we do? How do we support that? How do we educate? Because we'll hear it in the news and then it's gone, but how do we keep beating that drum to educate people? The other thing that I really thought was interesting in regards to Texas is that what drives Texas' historic success in export trade? Well, the answer could be a combination of unique factors that other states simply cannot replicate. These factors include Texas' 16 seaports. We have 16 seaports, which I didn't know, and including 11 deep water ports with channels of at least 30 feet deep, 33 foreign trade zones, Its location at the US border with Mexico is approximately to the Panama Canal and more miles of public roads and freight rails than any other state. So I won't read all the information, but what I wanted to share is that there is opportunity out there and we have to be intentional. We have to connect the dots, as Christopher mentioned. And how do we connect those dots? We have to have these Globinars. We have to have networking, virtual, in person. We have to court businesses and ask, or share what the desires are. I don't say demand because demanding doesn't get us where we need to, but we need to educate and we need to ask and we need to promote. Christopher, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, no, those are great points. And so one of the highlights is that when we talk about the facts about Georgia, when we talk about the facts about Texas, most of that is really reporting about what the state governments do, right? And what traditionally has happened with African Americans in business is that to do international business has always been one of the things in which we were told that we're just not capable of being able to do. And so when you're looking at trade missions and the opportunity to take African American companies into these foreign markets, we're just not there. I think that with Global Chamber and the new construct that we have, seeing all of you, right, we're now on a global platform that allows us to have conversations around the world. So when I
echo that. Can I interject real quick, please? I can echo that because I know firsthand that we have members on this call today that are in the process of doing business in Africa and several countries there. So taking their business and starting a business there or expanding it. So we're making some headway, and I just know that Global Chamber is leading the way. We're leading the way.
Yeah, and we have a unique platform that again, when I thought about this opportunity, right, that we have to connect really good people who are in business intentionally into things in which we've never seen before. I've had experiences working in other chambers of commerce, and I've not seen to date a process that works or has been tried. A part of this conversation, I was talking to Joel, you can unmute Joel, Ingaloo, who is from Congo. And he has studied in America in San Antonio, earned his master's of business degree, very educated, and goes back and forth to Congo to do service work there. But we agreed that there's Juneteenth to recognize African Americans alone, and to say that we're celebrating freedom for African Americans is really not as complete of a healing process, because we know that a part of what slavery showed us was that we were totally disconnected from even our birthplace. So how does Juneteenth address the healing process of the entire process and the people? And what I know about Black families is that we have led and been the #1 consumers in America for products and services. But yet, when you look at Black families, and as Dr. King would say, Black families are poor because the wealth is never returned back into our own communities. So again, the conversation today is not to be angry, upset, because that's what the reality has been. Is simply put, how do we leverage this great technology, the platform, and the ability to have our own type of infrastructure that's built on supporting businesses from America to the Caribbean to Africa. So Joel, I spoke too much. I'm gonna give it to you.
No, thank you, Chris. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. So speaking on that, I think the biggest problem is first understanding that as African Americans, we're all one. I think coming in America, that was a separation. It was African Americans here in America, and then you're African. It was a distinction. But I think the more as like society has gotten smaller, the world's getting smaller, social media, things of that nature, you have that collaboration coming together and people embracing their heritage. You have now people trying to figure out their DNA, where their ancestors come from, and that's kind of connecting the dots. Hey, we're all African American. We're all going to get treated the same way wherever we go. It's one race. So I think when we understand that, now we have the passion. Now we need to have action about it. Action it requires patience, but also requires consistency. As Miss Dan Austin kind of mentioned, like Globinars like these bring awareness, but we need to talk about not just emotionally and not just building up people's emotions, stirring up passion. We need to have action behind it. So we need to be consistent in these Globinars, but also talk about the benefits. Think about it. I think when we kind of talk about business owners, we want to talk about marketing. We want to talk about ways to grow. So when ideas, we don't really think about international growth as opportunities to grow, expand your business. I think the more we promote like the good side about it, the more the passion is like, hey, you have a potential to grow your business globally, not just here in America. I think that would highlight some business owners that say, hey, we can do this. And having platforms like these Globinars, these mixers, these set meets, whether it's virtual face-to-face, it gives those business owners opportunities to talk about it and have ideas. Hey, we can reach out. I think it's just a lack of awareness, a lack of consistency, because it is a patience game. It is a thing we must do consistent. I think people kind of tend to rely on emotions, and emotions will then dry out. And so I think that's the first and foremost, understand that we're all together, understand we have a platform that we can actually develop a marketing scheme to develop these business owners, and having consistent meetings like this will bring awareness to it. That's kind of the first thing what I'm thinking of as we speak, but yeah, a lot of conversations continue.
Thank you so much. Stefanie.
Yes, Joel, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm in total agreement about how the unity and also the mixers and networking. I think the other component is measuring our success. I think many times we will put something on paper, we'll start it, and it veers off. So one, sustaining it, one, continuously being accountable around it, and then also measuring the success and measuring the failures, because there's going to be things where we fail along the way, lessons learned, and then proceed and how can we be success. Natalie, I like the word you have, awakening. It's like there's an awakening that we need to have surrounding this, and it's refreshing to me. When I think of awakening, it's refreshing, and then educating and communicating. And so all the information that was shared so far, I think if we just pull all that together, and sustainability and accountability and measurement would be awesome.
Addison, you're next. I saw your hand up. You can unmute.
Sorry, Christopher, this is Ruby Golo using my husband's phone. I've run out of battery, so sorry about that. It was an error.
Okay, that's okay. And so just to build on what Joel said is, yes, we're one. And that's why, again, I was thrilled actually when I saw Doug's email that went out to Global Chamber, right? Because he set the tone for this meeting today, and it's also as a non-African American CEO and founder, just to know that there are people who are really, in the core of their soul, they're just great people. And so we can build this bridge, right? I think one aspect of Global Chamber that I really like to see is the League of Extraordinaires and the League of Opportunities. What if we had a version of that for the businesses that could be enhanced, almost as a specialized League of Opportunities, League of Extraordinaires for those African businesses, those African-American businesses that want to work together. What do you think about that idea? Natalie, I'm going to let you unmute if you'd like to speak to it.
Okay, epic. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I'm new to the Global Chamber, so I'm still learning what all of the events are about and how everything works. So before I speak to that, I want to just throw out there that 4 generations back, my family were brought out from Europe as slaves. So it's not something, I don't want to steal from the pain that Black African Americans have struggled. I don't want to steal from the pain that my fellow people here in South Africa have struggled, because I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. That's where I am based. That's where I am now. My family have traveled the whole of Africa doing different projects, etc. And the war-torn countries, the desolation, the poverty, the lack of education, it's still huge. And even though there are a lot of people that have managed to make it to power, they're still stealing from those people that are still poor, they're still not educated, and they still don't reach the resources that they require in order to become strong, healthy, and even just think. Because at the end of the day, what you eat and how you grow up, all of those things have a very big effect on where you come out at the end of the day. And not everybody wakes up with commitment and focus and drive and can pull themselves out of the poverty and that mindset. So I really love what you guys are doing. I love the initiative. I really truly believe that we are all one. We come from one source. We were made by one maker.
Yes.
That is who we are. We are one. Our hearts beat as one. We hurt, we cry. We all have our children ripped from us for stupid reasons that are not fair or just. So I really believe that if we can connect, focus on what are the needs, like you say, what are the services, and how can we tie that back to what we have available? And of course, the logistics of getting things turned from each other. Because here in Africa, there is a lot of stuff going on. We have lots of development in countries across the board, all the way up to North Africa. They have huge projects to extend the rail, extend the transport abilities with the big trucks, etc. So if we can get stuff from America to the different African countries and maybe fill in the gaps with the ports, where the Ukraine needs to feed us, what happens if we get the supply from somewhere else? It's just a case of being open to brainstorming.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dana, please.
Well, Natalie has been, I mean, every comment has been connecting and inspirational, but you got Bob Marley in my head, one love. Because that's really what we're about. And I know Mel made quite a few comments, and I wanted to at least acknowledge your comments, Mel. You raised the issue about genocide in Ethiopia. So again, this is like raising the vibration and the awareness, because a lot of times we sit in our bubbles, our cocoons, because what are we working on? Our task. Where, you know, we've got this to accomplish today. We have a list of this to do today and a limited amount of time. However, we can prioritize and make this a priority, as Stefanie said earlier, to raise awareness, to be accountable, so we can also help businesses be sustainable. And then somebody touched on marketing. I mean, it was a whole, I could just pull it all together, because we're just talking about businesses thriving, right? But we have to first be aware that they exist. And I'm not a PR person for Global Chamber. It's going to sound like that's my number one role, but the reason why I can speak on it is because as members, each of us on here, I believe, are members. And if you're not, you're welcome to join the tribe. As members, starting at a certain level, you have a directory that you're a part of, and people can find your business in Global Chamber. And Cesar can tell us the number. Like, we have so many members. I don't even know that number, but it's exponentially a large number. And so if I want to do business across the waters, and this was the particular service, I can look on that directory and go, oh, Natalie has this service. She's in South Africa, so Johannesburg, sorry. And I haven't heard my friend here talk. Mutayet, I'm hoping you'll tell us where you're from, what you do, and what you think of this Juneteenth. And my last remark on this, I would say, growing up on the East Coast, I heard nothing about Juneteenth at all. And it wasn't until we moved to the West Coast that we heard about it. And of course, with Stefanie and Christopher in Texas, this is where this is the state that was culpable for, even after slaves were freed in the US on the books, they didn't free them until 2 years later. So even me being African-American, Native American, and Caribbean combination descent, I didn't know about it until about 10 years ago. So we're all learning. Mutiyat.
So
Let me unmute. Okay, there we are. Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. So my name is pronounced Mutiat. Thank you for inviting me, Christopher. And Stefanie, it's nice to meet you face-to-face virtually. Christopher and I met at an event yesterday, which was hosted by the International Student and Scholar Services Program, office at University of Texas at Austin, which I started working for last week. Although I've been working with UT Austin since last year, I was just in a different position with the College of Fine Arts. And one of my goals actually in this new position, as I've been perusing the website and looking at all of the programs that my predecessor coordinated before me, one of my goals is to make sure that there is a stronger presence of connection with African and Caribbean international students. So for instance, one of the programs that I'm responsible for coordinating is the Friendship Program, which connects UT students as well as members of the Austin community with international students, so that over the course of the school year, they have a local that they can form a personal bond with, and therefore feel more welcomed in America and in Austin. And within that program, there's the Language Circle, which helps students and community members come together over a particular language and practice. So some may commune over French, some may commune over Spanish, some may commune over Portuguese. But the first thing I noticed was that there were no African languages listed. And it made me wonder, well, is that because no one has volunteered to teach their own African language, or no one knows any African languages? So that's just one example of how sometimes African and Afro-Caribbean students are excluded in a way, I'm using that term loosely, from programs that are meant to support and make international students feel welcomed. They're just simply not acknowledged enough. And we all know why that is, all the historical reasons for that. There is still a preference given to European culture, European ways. Even the way we're speaking now, we all come from different backgrounds, but we're all speaking English, So in my position, in whatever way that I can, I want to make sure that the presence of African and Afro-Caribbean students is acknowledged and supported. And so I am open to any members of the community that are intentional about connecting with African and Afro-Caribbean international students, and hopefully continuing those relationships, whether they're personal or business related relationships after they graduate. Something that I also mentioned is that we not only have undergraduates coming in, but we also have scholars, graduate students, those who are here on fellowship, those who are doing their postdoctoral work. So that's a bit about me.
So I'd love to talk with you. I want to make sure I pronounce your first name correctly. It's Mutiat?
Mutiat. So the I is like an E. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Mutiat. So
Yeah.
definitely would love to speak to you, because Global Chamber does have a student membership. And so that we can have more conversations around that, and also discussions and being more intentional. Would love to partner with you. I understand I did miss you this past weekend, but we definitely will be seeing more of each other. But Global Chamber does have a student membership, and a student membership in the region, but also they have access globally. So let's talk more about that offline.
Sounds good.
There was a point that was also made about the opportunities, right, for young people. And so yesterday was a real great day. The Mandela Washington Fellows arrived at UT Austin, 23 of them. There's 500 that are chosen, and they go to all the major universities around the country. And for, I guess, the last 4 Mandela programs, I've been blessed to be invited just to be able to talk to these leaders, business leaders. And so in my conversations, I'm always asking the question, how can we help you? And that's something that I learned even with Global Chamber. You know, when you talk to Doug will say, how can I help you? It's a very consistent thing that we can all do, right? And that may be a part of the solution series is, you know, how can I help you? Joel was actually a college student when I met him. I was being asked to be a guest professor for one of his business classes, and that's how we connected. But I will tell you, even with African born and African Americans, there's a huge divide, and that divide has become what it is because I think it's a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of cultural appreciation. It's been a part of the brainwashing effect of you don't want to be from there or you don't appreciate really your roots. And that's why this conversation today isn't necessarily directed toward anyone. It's saying that we have so many different small problems that we have to work out to enable big solutions to occur. But the only way to do it is we have to be consistent. And again, our conversation today is about Juneteenth. So we're going to go to a quick breakout room because I want you to introduce yourself to someone in the room, and then tell someone what do you think that this initiative, should we have a year-round series that we really help to explore and develop this concept of connecting the dots with America, the Caribbean, and Africa. So we're going to go to a breakout room, and if Dana or Stefanie, if you have anything to add, please feel free to do so. But I'm going to go ahead and connect us. And we'll be back in 6 minutes, 7 minutes.
And we'll get you, Camilla, when we come back.
Okay.
So we do see the comments in the chat room, and we spoke to a few of them. When we return, we'll address the rest. And Camilla, maybe you can start us off. Hareya, okay?
Yeah, sure.
When we return from the chat.
Yeah,
right?
okay, for sure.
Breakout. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love that question though, Cornelia. That's a very good question though. So definitely love to hear a lot of that discussion around that. I think that happens in a lot of different cultures. So.
Okay.
Does Cesar have access to breaking out the groups, or is it just you?
I do. I was going to ask Christopher, do you need any help?
He can break out the groups. Then.
I was going to do a random.
Do you want me to do a random one?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. How many people per room?
5.
Okay. Let's do it.
Cesar, can you push me in another room other than the one with Stefanie and maybe put somebody in the room with her? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Let me just move you to
Okay.
the,
Like put someone in the room with her and move me where, if you can, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to find you. Okay, then there you go. Hold on a second. Okay.
How was it, Lisa?
Hello, how are you?
Excellent.
Good.
Looking forward to plugging in.
Okay, man. Thanks. I think we're in the big room now.
You are. And I think
Yes, we are.
Camelia is going to pick up before Christopher closes out.
Thanks, everybody, for your comments. I think it seemed like, it's sort of top of the hour already. Oh, my God. So,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, let us know what to do, Chris, because I think there were some really good comments by everybody in our group. Probably the same with everybody else.
Yeah, I didn't have the privilege of being able to hear all the groups, but I know in our group, we did say that this is worthwhile to continue a series that we can have open discussion. We also said out loud that it's because we work together and we do feel safe with one another. So I think that, we have the model of what we can move forward. I know that there was a question in the chat, and I did want to at least have that one question to be acknowledged before we close. And then we will also then schedule another, part 2, part 3, part 4, because this is not a conversation that's just going to be said and done. And it's not about necessarily taking this holiday and just building everything into this one holiday. But this is a conversation about how do we create a solution series that will enable economic opportunity to rise for all, and in particular, those who were impacted through the African diaspora. So what was the question, Dana, that was there that we said you were going to come back to?
Camelia, you're welcome to go ahead and raise your comment.
Okay. My main comment was kind of commenting on the dysphoria between Africans and African Americans. Speaking from the perspective of a Moroccan American myself. So my family is directly from Africa, like Northern Africa and Morocco. Mm-hmm. So what I've witnessed growing up in that kind of mixing of cultures, because at school it would be American culture, but at home it was just directly Moroccan culture, is my parents were resistant towards sharing their language or sharing their food or their culture, because they had experienced, especially my dad coming here in the 80s, had experienced a lot of negative reactions to his language or his culture or scrutiny. And my main question was, how do we bridge that gap, open that door to some people from those cultures that feel that, expressing themselves and opening themselves up will, they'll be met with negative reactions because that's what they're used to.
I'm going to tackle this first, just to say that, what we do have control over is, and I won't say 100% control, but what we have control is of the environment, this virtual environment where we are able to invite the actors and actresses who are going to be respectful of each other and be courteous of each other. As I started this off, Stefanie, Dana, and I, we had no agenda in terms of what the end of this conversation was going to look like. The hope was that we would be able to hear each other, listen to see if there is something more that we could and should do as leaders of Global Chamber, and then feel safe in moving out. I know that, and I'll just speak just to say that even as we were coming up with what we were going to talk about today, there was some sensitivities that we don't want to have a gripe session, right? We don't want to have a blame session. We don't want to have you should feel bad session, because at the end of the day, this is a business organization that we have the chance to, and as Cesar does all the time, he'll say, Chris, I want you to meet this person or this person. And I'm able to display the best of who I am to the world just because there's that trust and teamwork and there's that common respect. This is the behavior that I see in Global Chamber, is not behaviors that I see in the world. And so I'm thankful that our leader creates the environment and we are able to follow suit. So I hope that addresses your question. I don't know if we can ever remove that feeling that your parents felt from society, but I know that we can be the best model for what society should look like when they interact with us. And that's what's up. Who else wants to say something? I see Stefanie, your hand up. I see Dana smile. And this probably is a longer answer to the question, but that's cool. Let's go.
Dana, do you want to go first or do you want me to go?
Why don't you wrap it up, sis? So
okay.
Global dining, international global dining with Global Chamber. It fosters an understanding and appreciation of culture. So if you have yet to be involved in that, Maria leads that out of the Denver, Colorado, I believe, Global Chamber. And I think the time may vary. It's either lunchtime or sometimes in the evening. We're depending on where you are, but get on board because we embrace cultures here. We embrace diversity. We embrace, I can't think of the name of the bread in Ethiopia at the moment because I'm on the spot, but we embrace it. Sign up.
Yes. So, and I'm glad you said that, Dana. I was thinking of our childhood. We had like International Day, and not only at our school, at our college. And so I'm not trying to make solutions for everyone, every Global Chamber chapter, but having an international day, or international month and having different days that you come together and you can definitely use that pass that Dana mentioned. What was the name of the pass, Dana? I'm sorry. I had it right in front of me. What was the name of that pass?
The pass?
Yeah, you were talking about it was some type of pass you was mentioning.
I'm not
dining, global dining.
Global dining, yes.
Yeah, so you can use that global dining, but also if you do it within your region, you can get together and go to a Moroccan restaurant. Let's talk about the culture. If there's a Moroccan event or festival, like I go to Greek festivals. I've never worked for someone that's like Doug, and it just you just automatically fit in with every denomination, every relation, every culture. Mm-hmm. There's no separation when we come together. I haven't felt that. And I want the world to feel what we feel. And in order for the world to feel that, we have to demonstrate it, as someone says, in our day-to-day interaction, in our meetings, being intentional, and being open to different things and ideas. Don't stay in the rut that we typically stay in. Doug, it's all yours.
Well, I know he won't share that baklava that his daughter makes. I do know that.
Oh, Lord Jesus, that's my favorite.
And I see Camille, do you want to follow up with that response? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I kind of wanted to add to what I just read in the chat from Nicole. I agree with your I can see through your perspective as well, because kind of adding to that conversation, we kind of talked about the dysphoria between Africans and African Americans, but there's also a layer between that of, Africans that immigrated and had children in the US, and they kind of are in between those two cultures. They don't feel a part of the US, but they don't feel a part of their mother culture as well. So it's like this kind of alienating feeling that I just wanted to relate to. But yeah, I think groups like this and Globinars like this are fantastic to kind of include people who are on one side or the other or in between, that we can all agree on one thing. And that's, to be part of this global mindset, this global tribe. It's nice to feel a part of something when you've grown up thinking like, I don't feel a part of either side.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we definitely solicit your support moving forward. And now I'll turn it over to Doug Brunke, our founder, Global Chamber.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Christopher. And thank you all for participating today. Stefanie, your comments were really hit home for me. Thank you for, first of all, your kindness. And then the other part that I thought was really important that you said was this feeling that we feel of being part of a global diaspora to some extent. Most people are not international. But if they are international, they may be like living in the US and their parents were Belgian, so they're now very interested in the Belgian culture, but they're pretty much not interested in anything else, right? It's just very focused in. So it's international, but it's very focused. I think what I'm taking away from today is certainly the thing we always feel at Global Chamber, the global tribe, that those of us that are interested in the world as it is. However, we're all interested in specific things that will help our business. And so what I'm taking away here is that there's this, what Michelle talked about, the Africa and the African diaspora is a community. And how many people really are embracing it. And I think there are some, certainly, communities, and we have an opportunity to do that as well. So the Africa and then the African diaspora, which includes the Caribbean and the US and other countries, what are they? And then what is the forum that we then continue where instead of a US Belgian or US Japan or Asia, community, we've created here a community. And an opportunity to impact, not just for conversation, but an opportunity to make a difference. And when we make a difference, very often it's certainly us getting together and feeling good, but it's also business connections that can create prosperity. So thank you, Christopher and Stefanie, for taking this first step. I think it's the first step in many that can create some real value for many people in the world. Really appreciate it.
And Dana.
Dana, did you want to say anything or anybody else to close?
No, she was just saying, and Dana, the three of us. Yeah.
I think we can say, listen, I don't.
Help me out, Doug. Help me out.
You can correct that with some baklava, but we can say bye in our native language or language that you know. How's that?
All right.
Dana, Stefanie, and Christopher, thank you for all bringing this together.
My pleasure.
When's the next meeting, Christopher or
Actually,
Dana or Stefanie?
Well, tonight we're having a virtual meeting with the Nelson Mandela Fellows.
It's in 3 hours, I think, about 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours from now.
3 hours, and it's these folks right here and a couple more. But yeah, we look forward to doing that tonight, having a conversation with them, getting their expectations of their experience being here in the United States. They represent 19 different countries from Africa. And then we may even have some that are participating from the Americas program, and they represent 11 different countries that I had the pleasure of being able to meet last night. So we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a great meet and greet conversation. And so if you like, you can go to globalchamber.org at the events tab and you can sign up. And so thank you again.
When is
She's asking the next meeting for this event, the next
what's your vision?
meeting?
Exactly. Thank you, Stefanie.
Oh, thank you so much. Next month, let's do this monthly. And that way we have a battle rhythm, and we'll make it predictable so that we'll just put the year out from next month. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
The other thing I would challenge everybody, and Michelle, you brought this up, is, what do we call this thing, right? And how do we make this inclusive? How do we make this valuable? And then what do we call it? If 6 months from now, we're calling it the Juneteenth meeting, that could make sense, or maybe there's something else that makes sense. I don't know. But whatever you think it really resonates with you, that gets more people involved, get more people to get value from this, that would be awesome.
I'll go back out and poll the group.
Yeah. If I have some notes on this, who should I send it to?
You can send it to me or Christopher, either one. Do you have my email, right, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay.
Where are you located, Michelle?
I'm in Phoenix and Scottsdale.
Excellent. I hope the word bridge is in the future naming of it, because that's something you mentioned early on, Christopher. And we are creating a bridge that goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's key. I like that.
Yeah, we look forward to your creativity. So you've received the email blast. Please provide some thoughts. And again, thank you, Doug. I thank you, Global Chamber. And we're going to sign off now. But thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.